Hello everyone, welcome to Progress Junior Golf with Live Sport Now and the England Golf Young Ambassadors. My name's Steve Jackson and this is Ian Waterhouse.
Hello, Steve Jackson. Hello, everybody. Steve, there's something a little bit different about me this week. Can you tell what it is?
Have you combed your hair?
No, I never do that.
No. You've got earphones. You bought some earphones.
I've got some fancy new earphones, which just improved my audio a little bit, I have to say. So very, very happy about that.
Good. And also perfect timing as well, because I said it's a very warm welcome. It's a bit warm, isn't it, at the moment? The last couple of weeks has been a little more hotter than normal. So these earphones, and I've got the same as well. Jesus, I'm hot already.
Well, I have to say, Steve, I know we're going to touch on the news, but I have had the luxury of being out on the golf course a few times since we last did a podcast. I've been all the way to sunny Scotland, been to Birmingham, all in the name of broadcasting the game we all love. So I'm pleased to be home, but it's been a lovely trip since we last spoke.
I've been to Sicily and it rained.
Oh yeah. I went to Sandwell Park in West Brom and Dundonald Links on the west coast of Scotland. I reckon my trip was nicer than yours.
Possible. Well, no, don't get me wrong. I had a lovely trip and everything. The hospitality in Sicily was fantastic, but the weather was a little iffy. But it was warm rain, shall we say? So, anyway, right now this podcast is all about junior golf. It's about the next generation of golfers trying to get more boys and girls playing the game of golf. This is show number 37, and today we're going to look at your age. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Special podcast.
And your handicap as well.
Oh no, it's not that low. It's closer to your age, I think, Steve.
Yeah, close. Yeah, thank you. Yes, you're not right actually. Now we're going to look at success and failure within junior golf, and more importantly, how to deal with it. Because failure is quite a strong word to use, but the simple fact is that in golf, you're going to fail a lot more than you're going to succeed. So that disappointment can be difficult to deal with at times, and then you factor in the moments when you're successful and you think you've cracked this sport, and then more disappointment and more failure is quickly around the corner. So it's an important part of golf, and really we need to embrace it, and especially with juniors as well. Perhaps as an adult, we can learn how to cope with these types of things, but obviously youngsters, it's a little more tricky for them. So let's take a closer look at it then this evening. To help us do that, we've got two England Golf Young Ambassadors. We've got George Coope and James Beard. So we'll hear from them a little bit later on. They'll be talking about their experiences of success and failure, and how and why they fell in love with the sport. So it'll be interesting to hear.
Can I just say as well, Steve, do get in touch with us as well, because I think this is a cracking subject. Because when everything's going well, it's easy to get carried away. But it doesn't, in life, things don't always go well. So I actually think it's a really, really good subject. So if you are watching this, please do get in touch. There's a couple of ways you can do it. I don't know if you see, there's a QR code just up there. If you scan that, it'll take you straight through to the live chat on YouTube. Do it. We can see the comments as well, and we can bring them on screen. So please do comment below, or wherever you're watching. We're live across Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn. It is a really important subject. Tell us your experience of it as well, whether you're a pro golfer or an amateur golfer, or you're a golfing parent. Tell us about how you've dealt with the good times and the bad times, because I think it's a really, really important subject.
Now, you mentioned professional golfers there as well. Also joining us on the podcast as well as PGA professional Aaron Cox, a friend of the podcast, been on before. And as a teaching professional, he can obviously plays a crucial role in ensuring that boys and girls learn from their mistakes and also learn from their successes as well. Because sometimes, as we well know, when you can start getting a little bit too ahead of yourself, start thinking you're the next big thing, and actually, sometimes you might need to be brought down a peg or two just to try and keep you back on the right keel. But so that's what the podcast is going to be talking about. We're going to talk about success and failure. Right. But first things first, let's do the latest junior golf news then. Right, let's start I think you were up in Scotland, so let's start in Scotland. The Barry Douglas Scottish Junior Masters took place this week. Boys competition was won by Brodie Cunningham, 9 under par, 73, 63 in his second round, and then finished with a 71. He won by one shot from Cameron Mukherjee, and Dylan Cairns was in third place, a further shot back. The girls' competition was won by Summer Elliott from Inverness. She shot 78, got better as the week went on, 78, 74, and then finished with a 68. Eventually won by 8 shots from Erin Husky and Freya Russell. Staying in Scotland then, Burnham and Burrows. I think we've got a photo of the winner here. Burnham and Burrows, Patient Rhodes, 19-year-old, won the St. Rule Trophy. And guess where she won it? Of course, the old course at St Andrews.
Faldo winner as well, Patience, I think. Is she a Faldo winner?
I think she is, absolutely, yeah. Shot 70, 72, 70. If you remember in the podcast last week, we were talking about family rivalries. Well, her older sister, Mimi, was actually leading going to the final round in that event. Eventually, she finished tied 4th. But Patience went on and won the competition, so very well done to her. Right, staying in Scotland, Blair Gowrie, 16-year-old. Conor Graham has won the Scottish Men's Open at Meldrum House by 4 shots. He's a member of the Walker Cup squad, so very good timing this, because this is played at St Andrews, which is where the Walker Cup will be played. So it's nothing like giving the selectors a bit of a nudge in the right direction to say, I think I'm in quite good form on this course. And tell you what about these two scores round? I think it was played at the old course and the new course. 67, 67, 68, 63.
Oh.
So and won by 4 shots in the end. Alton van der Meer from South Africa finished second. He also shot 4 rounds in the 60s as well. So outstanding quality in that competition. Right, a couple of 22-year-olds. I know we covered junior golf, but a couple of players who've done well in competitions, which I think deserve a bit of a mention. Ireland's Alex Maguire. The reason why I mention him is because he's also in the Walker Cup squad as well, and he won the St Andrews Links Trophy by 5 shots, and that was played at the old course. So therefore, another player in form, ready for that Walker Cup. 70, 66, 66, and 64. So 21 under par over 4 rounds, and that's some going, that is. And actually, a week earlier, he also won the East of England Men's Amateur Open Championship. So that's a player in seriously good form. Another player in very good form. Big event coming up on the PGA Tour, which I'm sure you're well aware of. The US Open takes place this week. And 22-year-old Hallam amateur Barkley Brown.
Did you say?
The
Live US
yes,
Open.
That's the one, yes. The combined PGA stroke Live US Open. Yes.
Live wins.
Yes. yes. That's another podcast for another day. I'm sure we will cover that.
We need to touch on that because it's a big thing. Yeah.
Anyway, Barkley Brown has made it through final qualifying and will be playing in that event, so really well done. And he's actually from the same club as Matt Fitzpatrick, who of course is a defending champion in the US Open. So fantastic that a couple of Hallamshire players are playing in that. Right, Faldo Series. You might see the shirt that I'm wearing. Been wearing it today. They've had an event today. They had one a week or so back, which was the Elite Tour that took place at Murrayshall. That was won by Jack McPhail, 66, 7 under par round. Second place was Harry Uzzell and Mitchell Cowie. And Harry today, do you want your banner, your bit on the bottom which says exclusive news, exclusive breaking news? I might have just given it away. Actually.
Hang on. I don't know if I have. Oh, here we go. Yeah, breaking news. There you go.
Breaking news. I can exclusively reveal that Harry Uzzell won today. So that took place. That's the second event. That took place at Trentham Golf Club. 69 from Harry. He won by 3 shots from Connor Bell and Ollie Lewis. And also the Faldo Junior Tour. They had an event a couple of weeks ago which took place at the Asbury. I think we've got a photo if you can. I know you're trying to talk.
Yeah,
to
sorry, I was just
trying to get.
Aaron's joined us Aaron's in the green room. We'll call it the green room, and we're going through a few last minute checks. Sorry, was it Ben you wanted?
That's correct. Yes, the winner. A bit of a giveaway.
Top lad, Ben as well, by the way. Really good lad. It's Ben and his dad.
Absolutely, yeah. So he won the event at the Asbury. Ben Bolton. This is from Enfield Golf Club. 73, 70, 69. He won by 5 shots from Toby White. So incredibly well done to him, and a cracking photo as well, I have to say as well. Who took that, I wonder. Right, staying with junior golf then. Hertfordshire, well, I say junior golf. Hertfordshire Women's County Championships. A 16-year-old winner, Tala Clark. She beat Sandy Lodge's Anna Malloy in the final at Moore Park. I mean, this is a 60-year-old. She didn't even won the County Girls Championship. You know, who cares about the Girls Championship? Let's go on and win the women's one. So she's gone on and won the women's event. Actually, both of those players who made it through to the final were the top 2 players in the knockout stages as well, in the qualifying stages as well. So well done to both of those. Another big event, the Lagonda Trophy took place at Gog Magog. And I think we might have a photo here because we've got 2 stories coming up here. We've got 2 slightly different photos here.
Okay.
So this is Edward Featherstone, who won the Lagonda Trophy at Golf with Gog. And
How cool was that?
yeah, very cool, very old-fashioned type of photo, very old-fashioned kind of prize. He shot 68, 69, 17, 70, won by 2 shots from George Cordell and Oliver Baker. Now, the reason why I love this photo is because I saw the photo of the next competition, which was the German Boys and Girls Open Championship. The winner was a Tim, hopefully I'm going to pronounce his name here, it's a German golfer called Tim Weidmeyer. Now, this made me laugh because that looks as if the place is on fire. But I suspect they've done some proper fireworks there. So very different.
Do you know what I think it is? I think they drove this car over to Germany, and that's how it ended up. On fire.
You're a genius, Ian. I was gonna reveal it, but no, you've got it spot on there. That's exactly what happened there. It took them a week to get there. It broke down 7 times on the way. No, it didn't. But anyway, look, I mean that's we said a little bit earlier about Liv and how that they brought things into golf and all that kind of stuff. There's the 2 different types of golf, isn't there? There's one whereby very traditional competition, traditional prize. I don't know whether they actually necessarily won that prize, but certainly a traditional photo. And then one where a little bit more fun, if you like, smoking.
There you go. If this is the future of golf, I want to be German.
Absolutely, yes. So that's the German Boys Open Championship. That was the boys' winner. The Girls' Championship was won by Rocio Tejedo, I think. She's a Spanish girl. So well on to both of those. Actually, staying with pyrotechnics, if you like, I ran an event at the weekend. The Warwickshire Spring Masters took place at Rugby Golf Club, and we had thunder and lightning, cool. which was a little tricky to deal with, shall we say. We had to bring them off the golf course, as you can imagine, safety and everything, for an hour and a half. Eventually, we managed to get the competition finished. You felt for the kids because they got back in some of them got back in at 9 o'clock in the evening, and then we had to do the presentation, and they might not have got home until 10 o'clock. So I want to say a massive thank you to all the kids and parents and everything who stuck around for the presentation. So well done to them. Big weekend coming up as well. A couple of competitions we've been covering. We're doing one on Sunday, the Shire Junior Golf Tour got an event at Silverstone Golf Club, and go back to our podcast a couple of weeks ago with the Stadium Golf. The prize for some of the winners of that is to go and do that Stadium Golf. So thanks so much for Nick for sorting out the prize for that. And on Saturday, I think an event which hopefully you're going to be there covering as well. We've got the Alexis Brown Golf Foundation Day, which takes place at Nelcott Hall in Coventry. Full field, 72 players playing in that, all sorts of different handicaps. Got scratch golfers right the way up to beginners, so all sorts of ages, and qualifying spots available to play the British Par 3 Championship later this year. So it's a big event, and one I'm certainly looking forward to. I hope you're looking forward to it as well, Ian.
Yeah, it'll be an absolute cracker. I actually have my own bit of junior golf news as well, if that's all right. Because
we've finished all what I have to say, so you can reveal all.
Well, as you know, I was doing the Championship of Ayrshire on Monday on the Trilby Tour. Trilby Tour back for 2023. Every event covered live by us. So if you haven't seen it, if you didn't watch it on Monday, go back and watch it. I don't know why weren't you watching. But anyway, there was a couple of juniors actually playing as well, Steve. The first chap teeing off was Jake Johnston, still a junior himself. Had the honour of the opening tee. He plays off +1, by the way. This is a kid to remember. Didn't win, but anyway, still did very well. Eva Woodward played as well in the ladies category. In fact, the winner was Lucy Renton. She's not a junior, but she's only 22, which was pretty impressive. She won the ladies section. I think she was 1 under for the tournament at Stableford, but I think she was on 39 points or something. That would have won it overall if it had been an overall competition, because the men's Division 1, which is the lowest handicap, was won by Leslie Boswell on 37 points. And Leslie, bless him, he is 65 or so. So the juniors are coming through, Steve. They are coming through, and it was very nice to see on, the largest amateur tour, I suppose, in the Trilby Tour, attracting juniors like that. It was really good to see.
Absolutely, and hats off to the Trilby Tour for inviting them along and letting them play in these types of events. So well done to them. So, right, that wraps up the news then. So we are into the podcast now. Before before Ian leaves us, I should say. Sorry. Is Aaron sorted? Are we all okay, Ian?
Aaron's here. Aaron is looking fired up, I have to say. He's actually just done 150 press ups in the green room. Just seen him do it.
Yeah. Now, before we bring Aaron in here, are we mad here, Ian? Are we seriously mad? Are we doing a podcast on success and failure? And in Ashes Week, we're bringing on an Australian. What are we doing?
I thought you meant more, Steve, because we know Aaron likes to talk. So this podcast will probably go on to about midnight.
Yeah. So we're not going to mention anything at all about cricket or the Ashes or winning.
Why not? England are going to win. What's the problem? They're not all that Australia these days at cricket, are they?
No, well, apart from being the world champions. Anyway, there you go. Right.
All right. I think I better get out and let you guys talk.
Yes. So we've got England young ambassador George Coope, England young ambassador James Beard, and PJ professional Aaron Cox. We shall see you in a couple of weeks' time, Ian, and let's bring our guests in then. So we have James, George, and Aaron. How are we doing, guys?
Very well.
Sorted.
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Right. Promises no mention of anything to do with cricket or the Ashes. But we might mention a little bit about the Australian psyche as far as
go the Aussies
is concerned. Yes. Right now, so this podcast is about dealing with success and failure. Then, so just a simple question to James and George first of all. We'll start with James then. When did you first start playing the game of golf? Just to give us a little bit of background of when you started playing.
Only about a year and a half ago.
And you're 15 now, is that right? So it's a little later. Is there any particular reason why you started a little bit later than perhaps others?
It was a couple summers ago. I played a pitch and putt course when I was on holiday with my dad and my brother, and I really enjoyed it. But I only really got into the game, quite a few months after I came back from holiday.
Okay. And George, you a little bit early with yourself. When did you first start playing?
Started playing at about 11.
11 years old. So obviously this podcast is about success and failure. I'll bring Aaron in on this then. So when you're dealing with people who are 11 or 14, 15, I suppose the simple question is, what is success for someone at that very young age?
Depends on what their goals are. There's kids that want to get the golf ball up in the air, want to get a par, want to make a birdie, want to have a good round. They want to break their handicap on the course. There's a lot of different stages of obviously the junior golf and what their goals and what success in their golf game is all about. So it comes down to individuals. But for me, it's obviously making sure the kids, juniors, they enjoy the game, but also they actually have short, mid and long-term goals.
And with yourself then, George, you started when you were 11. Can you even remember back then about thinking, what do I want to do? What are my goals?
No, I played golf just because. Well, I started playing it just because my dad told me to, and I thought I didn't really want to, if I was honest. But I have my reasons of why I got into it. So my dad was like, "Oh, why don't you just go and play and we'll see?" And I didn't really enjoy it, but then when I got to about 13, I actually properly fell in love with it.
And what about yourself then, James? When you first started playing, did you have some goals? Did you have some ambitions of what you wanted to do?
It was more a competitive thing, really. I've always been quite competitive, and seeing as my dad and my brother, we all started as complete beginners around the same time, it's always been for me about trying to beat them, I guess.
I mean, that's something which we certainly will come into, the competitive side of it and exactly how that forms the part of it. Let's talk initially then about coaching then, and obviously with Aaron being a PGA pro. When you first have that junior in then and they're almost complete beginners, if you like. Say you've got a complete beginner. Where do you start trying to teach them in the sense of where are the expectations? I suppose that's the question.
Well, their expectations are going to be to hit the golf ball. That's what they obviously ideally want to try and do when they first start. But obviously you try and teach them the fundamentals and simple things that they can try and get quickly. You give them small goals of getting the grip right, getting the stance right. And then a lot of kids, when they're first starting, is that the left leg will clear open and then the left leg will do a pirouette and they'll finish actually looking their entire body down the fairway, or they'll be on the ground. So you then give them I try and give my kids small goals of, right, keep your feet planted, keep your feet really, really still, and allow the arms and the club to do the work, which will then allow the golf ball to go in the air. So it's simple. Me personally, when I'm teaching young kids, but even then with George and James's ages in their teenage years, it's giving them, right, hit a ball shape left to right, right to left, or if they're beginning, it's right, work on this movement to allow the golf ball to go up in the air and get that golf ball in the air. I think as soon as the kids see that ball flying, that's when, and I don't know if James and George were like this as well, because it definitely was me when I was, and when I was 2 and 3, 4 years of age when I first started, was as soon as that ball got in the air and you got that crisp sound, then you're like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I want to do that again. And then you went, and again.
So actually, so a question. I'll answer this question before I ask you. But I remember the first shot I hit whereby I meant it, if you sort of mean, in the sense of I remember getting an 8-iron out of the bunker from 50, 60 yards and putting it to about 2 feet. And that was, wow, I can play golf kind of thing. Do you have you, George, first of all, do you have a recollection of a time where you thought, actually, I can play this game?
I was in a group lesson when I was probably 12, and it's when I didn't really like golf. I was just kind of doing it because my dad told me to. And there was a bucket that our coach put in the middle of the driving range, and not a single person hit it but me. And I thought, I'm all right at this, even though I don't even want to be here.
And what about yourself, James? Can you remember that moment whereby you just thought, actually, I can do this?
Yeah, it was a group lesson also for me, and they have like the markers at 50, 100, 150 yards out, and my teacher or my coach just told me just try and get it to the 50, try and hit something in the air, and he was like showing me the movements, and I remember I really committed to one shot and I got it perfectly next to the 50, and that really lifted me.
What about you, Aaron? Because obviously I know you're a professional now, kind of thing. But I remember it vividly with myself, and I was probably very similar age to when George played. So probably about 11 years old. I remember it on my local golf course of hitting that bunker shot and thinking, how on earth did that? How did it get there? But also I meant to do that. So therefore, I kind of got the bug from then onwards. Can you remember that moment when you got that?
My personal recollection wasn't actually a shot. It was a round of golf that I played. I was 9 years of age, and it was the first time that I beat my dad off the stick. And then from there, and the deal was that whenever I beat my dad for the first time, he would then quit golf and pretty much be my caddy, taxi, and he'd take me around all Queensland playing golf. And that happened when I was 9. So that was when pretty much I thought, oh, hang on, that's pretty cool. I've just beaten my own dad at age 9. I reckon I've got a good game in this.
Now, it's interesting that James, in particular, you mentioned about the fact that you're competitive, and obviously Aaron's, that was him was beating his dad. So when did the competitive side, did it kick in straight away with you?
I don't really think so, because when I first ever played golf, it was at that pitch and putt course on holiday, and at that point, I was just kind of doing it as a fun thing, trying out a new activity on holiday. But then it was really when I started to play, off my own accord at home. When I got back home after that holiday, and my brother and my dad were both coming with me every time. They were wanting to play as well, and I think that was, that same point was where we all kind of developed that drive to try and beat each other.
Now we will come into the role that parents play in the development of juniors, things like that. But I have to bring up the fact that George, you mentioned it a couple of times there, whereby you didn't really want to play at that time, kind of thing. So when did it really start transferring, whereby you go, actually, the competitive side started kicking in here?
When I got to about 13, I got to about like 28 handicap, and then at my home golf course, it's quite a big junior section, and I started beating people that I didn't think I was going to beat, obviously on net and everything. But then I was like, I'm actually all right at this, and I wanted to go every single week because I wasn't that bothered about playing golf, but I just wanted to beat everyone, if you know what I mean. I was there to beat everyone, and then that just made me fall in love with golf, really.
Okay, so obviously we're talking about success and failure. Ian's in the background. Hopefully, he'll be able to help us out here, because there's some photos that I took just this last weekend of players playing golf, and I think it pretty much says everything about golf. This was actually 3 players in one group. So we'll do a little. If Ian can put up one of the photos, and we'll try and describe now. Now, do you think this putt went in or not? So quiz question here. So.
No,
we won't get an answer here, but let's Ian show the next photo and see whether it did or didn't. So do we think it went in or did it not?
It lived out.
It lit out, yeah. Okay, so next photo then. So do we think this shot went close or not?
I think it did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You might be gathering the way that it did, and the lad hold the putt kind of thing. So, all right. Next photo. What do we think with this one?
Ooh,
4 foot in
looks
front
like
of
he's
him.
got. No, I reckon it was a good shot because it seems like he's got decent connection on that ball.
Yeah, it does,
Okay.
to be fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see the photo. Yeah, not great to be
Okay,
perfectly
maybe it
honest, kind of thing. But there was but just within that one group, you saw emotions. One of them sticking it behind the tree with his tee shot, thinking, "Oh my God, I'm going to come off this with a bogey," and then ends up birdieing it. One of them who thinks he's going to do well, and then you were right, it did lip out his putt, and then another one whereby he didn't quite get his chip right and thinned it through the green, kind of thing, And so those are the types of emotions which you have to deal with, kind of thing. Now, I don't doubt that both James and George have had those moments, have you? Whereby you've hit the shot where you think, this is rubbish, and actually it's worked out well, and vice versa.
We all have.
Yeah, yes, exactly, and that's the point, isn't it? But I'll come to George first then. How did you initially deal with that when you were first starting out in the game? When those situations arose, and your emotions were going up and down, how did you deal with it? And you're allowed to say badly.
Yeah, really badly. Oh, I would just. I'm better now, but on it, I used to just get so mad. Yeah, even when I was bad at golf, I just expected everything to be perfect. And I don't. Looking back at it now, obviously, I'm so much better than I am now, and I still everything imperfect. 'Cause you can't be perfect in golf. So, I was rubbish, absolutely awful. I was so bad.
And James, you've obviously only been playing for perhaps 18 months, a couple of years. So you're perhaps a little earlier in that development stage. What about you? Have you had those moments whereby it's gone really well and really badly, and how have you dealt with it?
Yeah, so I hit bad shots all the time because I'm quite new to the sport. So there's so many bad shots in any given round. But I do get angry at first, but I always remind myself that I haven't been playing long. Bad shots are bound to happen multiple times around. You just got to move on and remember that I'll improve over time and that I'm not very good right now.
So you as a PGA pro, Aaron, you've said there that even you play those bad shots. And we've watched tour events whereby even Tommy Fleetwood, I watched watch him down the 72nd hole thinking, okay, he's going to win his first PGA Tour event there, and hits a poor tee shot and then a poor second shot, and you think, he must be thinking the same thing which James was thinking there, George was thinking, and how do you cope with that then? How do you as a pro, when you see juniors doing that, how can you try and relate to them and try and get them to not?
Well, I definitely can relate to them because I was like that as a kid. My emotions were up and down like a roller coaster. So it wasn't until I got older in my age that I actually then started thinking about my game and trying to level out that emotion because you are always going to hit poor shots. You are always going to hit good shots. As I always teach my kids, and Steve might have heard this before, but to George and James, I mean, can you guys answer me this? Which animal in the world is the happiest animal in the world? Which animal's the happiest? Any ideas? Now, I'll give you a bit of a tip. John Rahm has actually mentioned this in an interview once when he's been playing on PGA Tour. And I'll give you the answer, right? So it's a goldfish.
Go on. Goldfish. Is that because it's got a memory of 15 seconds, is it?
10-second memories, right? So the goldfish has got a 10-second memory, hence the reason why it's the happiest animal in the world. Now, when I won my only 4-round tournament win back in 2016, I actually learnt something from Phil Mickelson. And obviously I know at the start we were talking about LIV and PGA, so it was quite funny. But back then, obviously, when Phil was very, back to playing with Tiger and in his heyday in 2016, was he always said that he accepts that he's going to hit poor shots in a round. He'll hit multiple poor shots. So in 2016, I went and played this 4-round tournament in the South Pacific near Australia. And I set onto the first tee, the first round of a 72-hole tournament. I said, I'm going to hit a lot of poor shots this week, but it's how I get out of trouble. I get into trouble. The first rule for me is to get out of trouble. Now, if I get out of trouble first go, I've got always a chance to make par. Whereas if I don't get out first time, I don't have the opportunity to make par. So I accepted that I was going to hit absolute stinkers throughout that 4 rounds. But I knew I was going to do it. So when I did hit that poor shot, I didn't actually get upset because I had actually told myself, well, what's going to happen? Just accept it and go get yourself out of trouble. I then went on to win, and I won by a shot. I shot 12 under over 4 rounds on a par 72. And I was the only player in that field to break par all 4 rounds. From that spot, and that was 2016, so that was only like 7 years ago. From that spot onwards, through my career from then onwards, and then even the last 5.5 years being here in the UK, that's been my philosophy. I'm always going to hit poor shots. I'm always going to hit really good shots. It's maintaining my levels of emotions there, not going up and down like as I said before, the roller coaster. And if you can accept that from the very first tee shot, the pressure's off. There's no weight on your shoulders, and you're actually going to go out there and free ride it a lot easier, and you'll actually enjoy yourself a hell of a lot more.
So I'll ask George and James the question then. Have you ever had that experience that Aaron's had, whereby you've gone into a round and almost like freed your mind and gone, relax. I'm just here to play a round of golf. And on the back of that, you played fantastically well. Have you done that, James?
I actually had a similar experience just last weekend. I played a match play against another junior club in my area, and my first tee shot was absolutely horrendous. I was going into it thinking, I've at least hit a good first tee shot and then I'll be fine from there. But it was a like massive hook, 2 fairways along. But then I just thought, I'm not very good at golf anyway. I may as well just enjoy it. And yeah, I started playing instantly better from that point.
And George, have you had a similar experience than James and Aaron?
I'm gonna say on literally this Monday night, I was we had a scratch league match, and I was so ill, but I had to go because I was the only player. I was no one else could fit in, so I had to go. So I got there. I was just expecting to play like awful. I was really expecting to play awful. Got myself a buggy, and then I shot like 2 under, and then beat the guy on the 15th hole. So, but I thought I was just gonna go playing absolutely awful. So, well, I didn't. So.
Okay,
you lose
so I'm going to give you the difficult. I'm going to give you the difficult question then, Aaron. How do you cap that? Because you said 7 years ago you won your only 4-round tournament. So why didn't you do it the following week? Why didn't you do it the following week after that? Why did that? Why did exactly?
Well, I'm not a full-time player. I wish I was, but look, from there, every tournament and every event that I played on after that, I did actually initiate that thought process into my rounds. And over the last 7 years, my game's like a fine wine, and I'm getting better with age. So obviously I'm near 38, and I'm looking forward to seniors tour at age 50. But I know that I'm going to be better, way better than I am now. And I'm way better than I am now than I was when I was 27, 11 years ago. So I've instilled that into my game ever since that win in 2016. And I've actually, from that, Steve, I've actually had multiple wins, not 4-rounders, but I've had Pro-Am wins. I've had, I won last year. I won the Manchester Open, which is a 2-round tournament. So I have actually done what I did back in 2016. I have actually continued, and it has actually made me a better player, both physically but mentally as well.
So when you're doing coaching then, and we'll ask James and George whether they've experienced this with their coaches, but when you're coaching them, how do you teach them to relax on a golf course? What can you say to them to treat it like it's any other round of golf? How do you do that? How can you get that message across?
I get them to play games within the game. So I actually get them to play their own games when they're playing the big game. Whether their parents are walking, walking, say, up the fairway, then I try and get them to actually play a game with their mum or dad. That's whoever's walking. I give them targets of 6 holes. So there's three 6 holes in an 18-hole round of golf. So I try and give my like elite kids who are got in my development program to play 6-hole competitions amongst themselves in the competition that they're playing against all the other kids. So it then takes their mind off the actual tournament that they're playing. And it's the same with me when I play like when I go to qualifying for, like I did last year for the Open Championship. And I went in there and I played my own game because I knew that the event was going to get the better of a lot of players, because the situation is, the atmosphere is sometimes just too big. So I break the tournament, into a game of their own, so they can relax a lot more, and then the shoulders just go down a bit. They'd lose a couple of kilos, and they play their own game.
Okay, so with you then, James, have you had that conversation with your coach, or a very similar conversation of how you can relate to, or make it more enjoyable, make it less stressful? I don't like using the word stress when you're talking about junior golf, but it can be, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you were saying, Aaron, you had like their parents walking up the fairways with them, something about that. It's not on like a competition sense, but whenever I'm playing with my dad, if we get onto a par 3, he'll be like, oh, whatever if you make a hole in one, or like, I'll make a bet, I'll give you this if you get a hole in one. And it's a very low chance of happening, but it really takes the pressure off.
Takes the mind off.
Yeah.
The bigger game.
Yeah.
And what about you, George? Have you had the similar types of conversations with your coach about how he can make you relaxed on the golf course?
So, especially when I'm in their bigger events, I play 3 holes, and whatever score I'm on, I just restart like I'm on scratch, and I'll play every 3 holes so I can keep myself together. Because if I'm 3 over after 3, I can lose my head quite quickly. But then I know I can easily shoot 1 under for the next 3. So I always start back at 0 after 3 holes.
Now, Aaron brought up the example there of playing in the Open Championship, which obviously a professional, or Open Championship qualified, which at a professional level is obviously top level. Now, with you, George, can you differentiate between your monthly midweek medal and your scratch league or your scratch competition? Is it, how difficult or stroke easy is it to try and make them seem the same?
I think monthly medals usually go into them as it's a bit of a laugh, if you know what I mean. You're obviously trying to shoot the best score you can ever shoot, but you're not really you're not fully focused, and you're not too bothered if you do badly. And then when you go into bigger events, you're like, I think it's more. I know you don't want to use the word stressful, but I think it is more stressful. You put more pressure on yourself. The fact it's a bigger event and people are going to see your score, so you want to make sure you're doing better, even if it's for other people or yourself.
So what's the biggest competition you've ever played in then, George?
I played in St Andrews Boys last year.
Okay. And what about you, James? What's the biggest competition which you'd say you played in?
Not very big, probably just an inter-club competition that I did last year.
Okay, but all right, so I'll flip the question the other way around then. What's the smallest competition, and can you tell the difference between that one you played in and a fun one which George was talking about there?
Well, yeah, we have smaller competitions every week within our own club. The junior section, they have like a summer league, so every week we'll go out and we'll do 18 holes, and it's like a Stableford competition. And then they have a overall, like, who wins the rankings overall right at the end of the summer. But for me, I don't find it difficult to like make them just seem like the same thing, because I hit so many bad shots in a round. Even if I do hit, a couple bad shots on a hole in one of these bigger tournaments, I'm just like, this is meant to happen at my level of golf. It's fine.
So what's your handicap, James?
About 35.
Okay, what's yours, George?
3.
So obviously two people at different ends of the handicap scale. So your expectations, James, are very different from George's expectations when he goes into a competition. And as a coach, Aaron, how do you deal with those types of players? Because there is different pressures with those two types of players, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've got kids exactly the same here. I've got your high handicappers and then your very low handicappers. It's all about course management. And again, it's setting goals for what they want to achieve on that game and what they're trying to do in that game. I give all my kids, if they're going out to play a game of golf, information about, right, course management, play smart, play to your game, and play to your handicap. So I had a kid who started the season on 18, and I was like, right, your goal is to shoot 90 every round of golf. Now that's his handicap. So anything less than that, win. Beautiful. Well done. Great work. Since that thought process, that junior has now gone from 18 to 14 in 6 weeks since the start of the season. And then I've had another kid who's gone from being off 13 is now down to 8. And then now we're pushing now into George's atmosphere of single figure golf. That means then your game to go from 7, 8, 9 to 1, 2, 3 is going to be more fairways in reg, more greens in regulation, more up and downs if you're missing greens, but then giving yourself more opportunities for birdie opportunities. With James being in the 30s and the higher handicaps, he's looking at making that bogey golf. Now, if he can get bogey golf, or even worst case, throw a few doubles in there, he knows that bogey golf is going to give him 18 over. That's like he's going to shoot like a 60 net. So, as you can see, the differences between you want to go with George looking at birdies, making more birdies, less mistakes, to James being, I want to look at making bogey every hole. If I can make bogey, my handicap's going to plummet. My game's going to go up a massive notch. But it's also a realistic goal. And that's where success and failure can be a very fine line, Steve, is that you can always set goals. Sometimes goals can be unreachable and at where you are currently. So I always tell all my juniors here, set goals that you realistically can achieve in either this season, in midterm, which is in 2 seasons, or long-term, 3 years or 5 years. But George is looking now he's looking you said 3 handicap, George, is that correct? Yeah. So at the moment, he's looking, right, I want scratch and then I want plus. Then I'm looking at, well, am I going to go pro, and what level, what way am I going to turn pro? That's where George is looking. James is looking at, right, bogey golf, that gets me at 18. I'd be so happy with that. Then once he goes from bogey golf, right, you know what? I want to throw a few pars in there. Then again, that's realistic goals for where your golf game and your ability levels are at now. And then you could realistically make way better changes and then get way better quicker if you accept those goals and then go hard at those goals.
Okay, now obviously this podcast is called Dealing with Success and Failure. We've looked at what happens if you having to try to deal with failure and disappointment. What about dealing with success? Because that can bring issues as well, can't it? Because if you start thinking you're better than you actually are, and perhaps this is a question more for George at the moment, because obviously you've got to a stage whereby you probably think that you're a good golfer, whereas James is obviously in that very early stages whereby still learning the game a little bit more. Have there been moments whereby you've just thought, I've cracked this, George?
I feel like, when we play union matches and stuff, when you're beating better people who are also off like scratch too, around your handicap, you do feel like really good about yourself. But then you can go play a stroke player, for example, and you can go shoot 11, 10 over quite comfortably out of nowhere, and then you've gone from up here to down here.
How do you bounce back from that, George?
That's what I mean. I need to be able to keep myself plateau and not when the highs are high, don't get too high, and when the lows are low, don't stay down there.
And with yourself,
that's
James,
what
the kind of success that you've had, have you had to do this to a lesser degree? Have you had to do something similar with yourselves at times?
Well, a major success for me is just getting something in the air, I guess. So I guess you manage that as it comes. You know, if I'm on the tee and I get a drive straight down the middle, you know, brilliant. Even if it's only gone like 200 yards, that's perfect for me. If I hit a terrible shot and hook it into the trees, that's still fine because it's going to happen.
Okay, so I'm guessing this has happened to you. You've done that. You've hit the drive down the middle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your next hole, you've done it again.
Yeah.
The next hole, you stood on the tee, and your confidence is sky high. This is going down the middle, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how do you? I guess what? It could. It might not. If it doesn't? What are you thinking?
Well, initially, I'm usually quite annoyed because I'm like, I've just been doing so well. What's all gone wrong? I thought I'd figure this out, but I think it's important in those moments to just take a step back and think about where my game is at. Of course, I haven't been playing long. I'm not very good, so I just accept that even if maybe I have hit 2-3 good tee shots in a row, it's not guaranteed to happen for the rest of the round. I'm definitely going to hit some bad ones.
Oh, what about there's a phrase which comes into my head quite often is if I hit a absolute cracking tee shot down the middle and then a complete hash of the second shot is in my head I go, that's how to completely balls up a perfect drive. You know, I'd say about 2 consecutive tee shots. How about consecutive shots where you think you've just nailed it, you've done it, you know, you've hit it 250 whatever down the middle, and then you've got a wedge in and you've duffed it 15 yards or whatever, you know. And that's as an adult doing that who should know better kind of thing. When you're doing the coaching, Aaron, and you're watching juniors do this, how do you deal with it?
You go back to their process. And like I was just listening to James, it's not about whether, well, I know I'm not very good. You got to look at it from a positive point of view. Okay. So when you get a kid that hits 1, 2, 3, 4 shots in a row off the range and they're going, oh, this is so good, this is so great. You see them bumping up in the air. You can see them looking at mum and dad, big smiles. Then they hit a bad. And then they're like, oh, what? It's going back to processes. It's going back to how you set yourself up, going back to checkpoints, your checklist, A, B, C, D, E. If you're not following your own process, which everybody's different, George has got one, James has got one, I've got one, every other player in the world has got their own process. But from a coach's point of view, it's me making sure that the junior has got that process in place. So then if it does go, up the creek, then you can then, as James had said, step back, but then step back and not think negatively and not think, oh, well, I know I'm not very good, so it's going to happen. It's nothing to do with that. It's go back to your process of your A, B, C, D, E and go back to 1, 2, 3, your checklist and tick them off one by one by one. That's how you can step back. And it's not about, and this is where you got to keep continuing take. And for George as well, this is probably a massive one for him. How can you take a positive out of a bad round? George, how many times have you had poor rounds of golf, or have you actually even ever taken a positive out of a bad round?
I'd say if I've drove the ball really well or putted really well, but I've hit my irons and I've missed loads of greens, but I've got up and down quite well and I've putted well. I think obviously I'm going home disappointed that I haven't played very well and my score's not very well, but you're going home thinking, it could have been worse if my driving wasn't as good, or it could have been worse if I didn't make so many of them putts. So I feel like wherever I've gone really bad, I try and look at what I've done well and say, all right, well, I've done well at that. I need to go do something else.
The more opportunities you give yourself when you are playing, remember, you play a round of golf, you play good or bad, guess what? You're still going to wake up the next morning, either go to school or go for another round of golf. So life is always going to be fine. It's always going to be happy. You're always going to be, we're quite blessed to be in the UK where we could be other places and be, not have a home. So that's obviously, golf is a very small factor of our lives. So it's, when you finish your round of golf and you said, oh, I've hit that great, but I've done that poorly. Well, then you've got to reminisce. You got to go back and go through your checklist. Like, why I did that. So why did I hit those poor shots all through the round? Then you can then go back and then go through your next round and go, you know what, I'm not going to make that same mistake. Or what I get the kids is I get a full round recap every time they play a round of golf, and I have their next lesson with them. I literally stand there in front of before we start the lesson and go, right, take me through it, hole by hole.
Okay, so with that in mind, do you ask them what the score is, or do you just do you ask them to describe their round?
I don't need their score, because I would rather find out what they're happy and what they're not about. The score is irrelevant, to be brutally honest with you.
You asked the question to George there, how are you looking at the score too much, do you think? Or do you think you can look more at the round and how it went? Or
I mean, George, do you play
focused?
Do you play better with, do you think you play better when you play against or play with players that are lower handicappers or, you know, plus handicaps? Do you feel you rise?
Yeah.
Why do you think is that? Why?
I think the fact I'm surrounded around better players brings like more concentration out and more concentration. So I hit the ball better.
Concentration and focus. That's
and what
exactly
about you,
right.
James? Have you played with some very good players like George? You've played with single figure handicappers, and what's the process with yourself? How do you feel in those circumstances?
Yeah, there's a single figure handicapper at junior at my golf club, and I play with him quite often. And when I do play with him, of course, the kind of shots he's playing seems unreachable to me, but I think it's important after I've played around with him. I look back and I see, what did I do similar to him? What was he doing well that I was also doing well? You know, maybe I made a putt that he also had from the same distance. I would take that as a success because I've done something that he's also doing.
It's never unreachable, James. It's never unreachable.
Yeah.
You've always got to look forward. So you can never look, like you've mentioned a few things in tonight that are a negative. You backtrack on yourself. You don't give yourself enough credit. Remember where you are at your game, where you are right now in your golf career. Everything is a positive for you moving forward. So when you play with that guy and you said those shots were unreachable for you, that A, they're not unreachable. B, it's the reason why he's playing them is the fact that he understands the process of that shot. He has confidence in his own swing and ability to hit that shot, and he can trust himself under pressure to pull that shot off. It's just like any other player, whether it's a professional or an elite player like George, you always look at where you are in the shots that you're capable of doing now, because in a matter of 6 months' time, you'll be able to do shots that you would have never thought of, because your understanding of the game and the swing in your game goes up like that all the time, every day, every game of golf. Every game of golf is a notch in your belt for experience.
Okay, now we've talked about expectations of James and George and what their expectations are. What about the people that they can't control, the expectations? And let's talk, both James and George have mentioned about parents being around. And when they watch their child, and I'll perhaps start with George on this one, because obviously George has gone from being at James's standard to a single figure handicapper. When your dad watches you now and you hit a bad shot, is there a change in it? Can you see him being, I don't know, annoyed, angry, say, you know, you should be doing better than that? What kind of attitude what kind of expectations do you have from others?
From my dad, he hasn't got anything to say because he can't hit a golf ball. So when he hits I hit a bad shot, he doesn't say a word because he knows
Excellent.
he can't do anything.
Okay.
Excellent.
He knows he can't do anything. So off my dad, no expectation. He'll just laugh at me and say, "Get better."
But what about so what about club? What about your club professional or your teammates who are similar standard, and where are their expectations, and how has that changed, and how much pressure does that put on you with their expectations?
I think if you hit a bad shot if I was playing well and I've hit a bad shot, and then everyone's expectations are like, where's that come from? How have you done that? You know, sometimes better players will like not take the mick, but like, you know, try and have a joke with you, but you know, why have you actually just done that, or where's that come from? Do you know what I mean?
And how do you react when they do that to you? Can you kind of, do you do it as well, if you sort of mean? So therefore you can kind of relate to what they're trying to say.
Yeah, I'll just laugh at me. Like I really am bothered about what you think about me. I'm not bothered, but if they're gonna do that to me, I'll just do it back to them. And I think everyone in my club, you know, we're all friends, so we just joke about it anyway. If anyone hits a bad shot, it's just a joke.
And James, you obviously mentioned the fact that you're competitive against your dad, so you don't have the same kind of mentality there. Where George is obviously, by the sounds of it, a lot better than his dad. Are you a similar standard to your dad, and the sense of is the expectation that he has of you can be slightly different?
Yeah, we're both about the same level. So, I guess if he sees me hit a bad shot, he's just probably sat there thinking that he could have hit the exact same bad shot in that situation. So I don't think it bothers him too much.
But the point I'm trying to get across here, and I'll bring Aaron in on this point, is the fact that the expectation which can come from outside can also have a bearing on the way that the junior looks at golf, and how important is it to try and dampen those expectations of people around the junior, and try not put too much. I don't like using the word pressure, but there is pressure, isn't there? And there shouldn't be, but there is.
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, if I can say anything, and if any parents are watching this right now, quite frankly, and I say this with the utmost due respect to every one of you, is let the kids play golf. Leave them alone. Let them be. Parents, I believe, nowadays I know we don't like to say it, but I think parents put too much pressure on the kids. And that harms. I've seen that firsthand, how parents do pressure their kids, and they hit a bad shot, and the parents are looking at them going, why'd you do that? And the kid's just like, well, Dad, I didn't mean to do that. Like, I wasn't trying to do it. But it just makes it all a negative atmosphere. And I think that's what really harms, especially young kids that are, you know, 9, 10, 11, 12 years of age, like very influential ages. When they get to teenage years, right, they can get their back up and tell the parents where to go, because they're a bit more teenager, respectfully. But when the kids are 9, 10, 11, 12, they don't have that, as I say, backbone. And I think the parents pushing down on them harms them more than helps them. So I would say, parents, be out there to support them, rain, hail, or shine, good, bad, great, lowest of lows, highest of lows, winnings of winnings, or coming dead last. Be grateful that they're playing this great game of golf. Be grateful that they're not out doing crime, and let them enjoy it. That's what I would personally say to every parent out there that's got a kid. And me personally, I've got a 10-month-old. So I'm a very, very new father. And obviously I'm going to be taking all of my experiences as being a golf coach, but also now an adult. I'm never going to push my son to do anything that they don't want to do. And I'm not going to pressure them to perform at the highest of levels if they're still learning and getting there.
I'll just tell you an anecdotal story, which is along the same lines as what you've been talking about there, but slightly different. Is that there was county coaching last year at over the winter months, and after the county coaching, they put together their what they felt was the players who were good enough to go into the county coaching setup. I'm sure George has probably been through this type of thing whereby he's gone to county coaching or trial. They used the word trial, and what they did was then the players who weren't picked. And I run the Order of Merit in this county, and this is no slight on the county because they've corrected the error and they made sure they don't do it again. But those players who weren't picked then didn't play in any of the junior opens during the year because they felt as if they'd been discarded by the county.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. And it like I say, it wasn't intentional on their part. It was just a case that they just concentrated on the ones who they wanted to see, they wanted to be part of the squad, and kind of like discarded the other ones, you know. Whereas this year they said to them, no. Keep your eye. We'll be watching you. You go and play in the other junior competitions, and if you're good enough, we'll be picking you. Is that an experience you've kind of had, George, whereby you've been to trials and you've almost had to match the expectation of counties or clubs, whereby you've had to, under pressure, perform in those environments?
I feel like I played Yorkshire Boys 2 weeks ago, and I felt like I didn't do very well at all. But I felt like after the first, I wasn't doing very well after the first 7 holes, and then I felt like loads of pressure and expectation I put on myself, and I was looking at the leaderboard, and so I think, I'm agree. Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, the interesting thing there is you use the phrase "the expectation you put on yourself." So was that? But that wasn't external. People weren't saying, you're not good enough. It was you thinking that they were thinking that. Is
It was
that
me
correct?
thinking that they were going to say, like, they're saying that, like, behind my back or something, for example.
And obviously, James, this is something which you've not experienced yet, kind of thing. But is it something whereby you hope that you might go on to represent your club in junior matches, things like that? Is that? I mean, have you been invited, for example, do you have a junior team? Have you been invited to play for your junior team?
Yeah, we have a junior team at our club, and we have matches against other junior sections as well from other clubs. But they are always very inclusive, and they try to invite everyone because they usually do like match play competitions, ones that are inclusive to like all levels of players. So.
And did you ever feel as if you didn't get in the team, you were not part of the squad? If you sort of mean.
Not particularly, because the junior organizer at my club is really nice. He's really helpful, and he tries to be as inclusive as possible. So if I'm ever not selected, he'll usually tell me it's not because you're not good enough. It's just because these people wanted to go, or I haven't picked this person in a while. But yeah.
Now, obviously, this is a big subject that we've been talking about here, talking about success and failure and disappointment and things like that. I mean, this is life, isn't it, Aaron? The fact that these are the types of things which they're lessons which are going to crop up in everything that you have to deal with. So teaching them in a sport and trying to keep it fun, but at the same time, life lessons as well is something which is going to be crucial, isn't it?
Oh, look, absolutely. And look, and George and James, I mean, I didn't have any kind of representative amateur career. I didn't make any, like in Australia, very similar to county. I didn't make any teams. I didn't have any representative golf of a state or national level. I turned pro at 19. I was a part of a group of kids that we used to have banter about, like there's 24 of us in this golf excellence program at school. And we're like, who's going to turn pro and who's not? And I was always the number one pick for never to turn pro. And out of those 24 kids, two kids out of that 24 turned pro. And one of them was me. So I say, stick it up them to start with. But also, golf has made me into the man I am today. Steve made a very good point about playing a sport and its life. Golf has got to be one of the best sports in the world for teaching a discipline, focus, concentration, taking a person, whether it's a kid or an adult, to that next level of thought process about what you can do on the golf course can actually affect what you do off. What you learn from a club, from being a member of a club, being with your pro, around the pro shop, around other kids at the club, you act in a very different way than if you were with your mates down the road, the shops or whatever. So golf has made me into the man I am because it gave me discipline. I was around members of golf clubs from the age of 6. So they took me under their wing. They taught me how to be an actual, law-abiding citizen, as I say. And I think it's that kind of club mentality that can be great for a kid in life in general, Steve. And you said it 100%. Golf can make a kid into a man because of the discipline of the surroundings of a club.
So I just finished. We're coming towards the end of the podcast now. We normally finish with trying to give some advice, whether it's to people who are watching this. We'll do it slightly different here, because I actually want George to give James some advice, because George is probably 2 or 3 years ahead of James in the sense of his golf development. So if you were giving James some advice about what he's at the moment, about how he can learn from his successes and his failures, and looking back on what you did a few years ago, what would your advice be to James?
I think you're enjoying it. I'd just stick at it and keep going. Try play as much as you can, because you'll get better without even realizing you're getting better. The more you play, you'll just take your scores will just keep getting better, and you don't even know you're doing anything that makes you better. You just are progressively becoming a better golfer.
And the advice, James, which you would give to a golf club out there or a golf professional out there who's watching this and thinking, how can I get the best out of me? What would your advice be to them of the kind of advice that they could give on trying to make sure that you deal with success and failure? What would your advice be to a golf club about the kind of emotions which you're going through? Because it's one thing which we haven't really touched upon here. This is 2 teenagers here, and I'm sure you have the situation, Aaron, whereby you have to be careful with dealing with teenagers because you don't know whether their emotions are. So you're a teenager, James. Explain and give some advice to a golf club out there or a golf professional about how they deal with you in the nicest possible way.
So especially for coaches, it's not always maybe just about teaching them, teaching me, I guess, a swing or a technique. You have to teach them to, take a step back from the game if they've just hit a bad shot and, go through their routine. And even after a round, teaching them to go through and pick out something they did well from that round, and just to teach them to keep moving on.
And finally, with you then, Aaron, what would your advice be then to any juniors out there, whether it's very young, whether it's slightly older ones, depending on the handicap? What would your advice be to them as far as how to deal with success and to deal with failure? What would your main advice be to them?
I would as I said before, set goals for yourself. Young kids can set goals. You can say, I want to shoot this score. I want to hit this shot. I want to hit a drive. Like James said before, I want to hit the 50-yard post. I want to put the ball in the net on the range. It's setting goals, but I would say it's realistic. And then with James, how he was saying about taking a step back and teaching, not just about the swing, but it's learning about you as well. So from PGA pros like myself, it's finding out how the junior works, how he or she learns better. Me showing, is it me helping and actually getting you into position, or is it talking you through the shot, bit by bit, and how to do this and how to do that, or is it showing you by a video? So it's learning the junior and learning the kid of how they retain information, but also it's keeping it light. Have very small, fun little games, throw in there, give them a small bit of success from the very, very start, which then piques their interest and goes, oh, this is pretty fun, this is pretty cool. But then once they get into it, then you can delve a lot more into swing techniques, understanding of fundamentals, and how to hit those certain shots that better kids and better players hit, that then James can say, oh wow, geez, I didn't think I could hit that shot. So that's what, absolutely. I that's what I would say to a lot of kids, and a lot of golf pros. Work with the kids and learn them, and then give them little small goals to check themselves off.
Okay, I'll finish on whether this is true or not. But someone told me this once, and I've kind of it stuck in my head, and I just thought actually it's pretty sound advice. Whether it's true or not, I don't care, kind of thing. Someone said to me once that the positive parts of your brain are at the back of your head. So if you put your head back, the blood runs to the positive parts of your brain. So when you're out on a golf course, James, George, and Aaron as well, when you're out on a golf course, stick your head up and look at the golf course. And the positive parts will go to your brain, and you'll start feeling more confident and more positive about their experience of going out on a golf course. Now, whether that's true or not, I just think that's pretty sound advice, because go out there and, there are worse places to be than the golf course. Go out there, stick your head up and look at a golf course. And I can honestly say, at the top of my head, I've not enjoyed, or well, I've enjoyed every single round of golf I've ever played, and it's got nothing to do with how well I play, because I've played in horrible weather, I've played in fantastic weather, I've played with people I haven't particularly enjoyed having a round of golf with, but I've still enjoyed the experience of going out there and having a round of golf. And I think that's pretty sound advice, and that's helped me deal with the very limited success that I've had and a lot of failure that I've had on the golf course, because at the end of the day, I'm out there just to enjoy a round of golf kind of thing, and I think you asked George the question of whether you've, what you learn from your failures on the golf course and whether you can deal with them. That's the way I deal with them, in the sense of just treat it as another opportunity to play a round of golf on a different golf course, or on the same golf course, on your own golf course. There are worse places to be. Right, we've all given a little bit of advice there. So I just want to say massive thanks to James and George and Aaron for coming on the podcast tonight, and obviously Ian earlier. We're going to have a podcast again in a couple of weeks' time. Subjects we're going to be covering in weeks ahead, we're going to be looking at mental health in junior golf, which we've touched upon a little bit today, which I think is incredibly important as far as trying to be positive, and me just mentioning there with the way that I deal with playing around the golf. We're going to look at rules as well with junior golf. We're going to have a bit of a quiz and make that a bit of a fun. So there'll be some questions out there, and we're going to be covering lots of other subjects as well, schools golf as well, things as well, which I'm sure Aaron has lots of dealings with. So that's coming up in the podcast over the next few weeks and months ahead. So thanks very much for joining this evening, and we shall see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks very much. See you later.
I'll get some tissues for you when we win the cricket, mate.